You're watching Beyond Markets. Welcome. I'm Esther Awuni. Many thanks for joining us. On the show today, we'll discuss the symbolism of June the 12th as Nigeria's new Democracy Day. As always, you can join the conversation with the hashtag Beyond Markets. You can follow my Twitter handle too at Esther Ubudaga. President Muhammadu Buhari's recent announcement of June 12 as a new Democracy Day for Nigeria has been received with mixed reactions across the country. I'll be discussing the symbolism of this new date with Ayo Obe, partner at Ogunsola Shonibare, Chima Nwajagu, founding partner at Blackcreek Partners. And joining us from Abuja, I have Sani Aminu Dutsinma. He's the managing director of the Islamic Banking and Finance Institute. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, Mr. Dutsinma, for joining us from Abuja. I'll start with a general question. Okay. This announcement by President Buhari to swap May 29 as Democracy Day with June 12 as Democracy Day. What was the first thing that crossed your mind? Ayo, let me start with you.
Long overdue, and it was a very welcome. It's a very welcome development.
Okay, Chima.
Well, I think it was the right time for this to happen, and the president. I believe the president saw the need to get it done right now. There wouldn't have been a better time than now.
Well, there would have been a slightly better time. To my mind, if the president had had this idea last year, then the necessary legal framework could have been put in place so that we, in fact, wouldn't have celebrated this beginning of this week as June 12th, as Democracy Day. We would be celebrating this June 12th, which is the 25th anniversary of the event.
I mean, I'd like to, let me just get Aminu's take on this. Aminu, I'd like you to share your thoughts on the declaration of June 12 as a new Democracy Day.
I think it is an honorable thing to do, and I think it is something that's wonderful. I think it is an honor to Nigeria, to democracy, and I think generally, again, it is a good strategy for the president to bring back the Nigeria together. And I think June 12 was a symbol of democracy to Nigeria, much, much more than the 29th of May that we artificially adopted. Yes. Okay.
Now, I know that while we say that, I mean, there could perhaps no better time to do this, especially since the late MK Abiola was seen as a symbol of unity, a unifying figure, there are still people who doubt, who have reservations about this sudden announcement. And questions like, why now? And why in a political year? So we cannot, ignore those questions as they were. What do you say to, Ayo, let me ask you now, what do you say to those people who say, why now? Why in an election year? And why out of the blue? We had Democracy Day just last week. Why didn't you make it,
Well, there's no doubt that the issue of how to recognize the position of Bashir MK Abiola has been something of a banana peel in Nigerian politics. You remember that the previous president attempted it with the renaming of University of Lagos, which did not go down well at all. And in this sense, the president is just one of a number of people who have tried to see how can we recognize this. Now, of course, there is going to be some political advantage to recognizing the contribution of MK Abiola. But what I think is important about this is that this, as Mr. Alhaji Dutse said, is a national. It's not you're confined to a corner of Nigeria as University of Lagos or a particular thing. This is not even doesn't even bear the name of MK Abiola. It is about telling Nigerians that yes, on May 29th we ushered in a civilian government. I think it's a good reminder to us that May 29th was only the end of military rule and the beginning of civilian rule. The struggle for democracy, however, is something that is an ongoing struggle, and it's perhaps to have it on June 12th makes us aware that simply swearing in presidents, democracy is about more than that.
Okay, I mean, let me ask you this. I mean, what do you say, I'll ask you the same question, to those who say that they're ulterior motives or say that this is just purely political? What are your thoughts?
I think you cannot satisfy everybody, more especially in the Nigeria context. No matter what you do, no matter what you try to do good, there should be somebody somewhere who will look at it at the other side of your motive. But the most important thing, as Mr. Ayo has said, and this is something that very significant, is the fact that the road to democracy was not just simply a smooth road for Nigeria. And the symbol of that democracy, and somebody who has sacrificed almost everything that he has, his life, his business, his wealth, and his family, was MKO Abiola. So there has to be a time for each and everything that you want to do. So if we don't do it today, maybe tomorrow, but maybe the day after. But the most important thing that it has been done, and it should be accepted. And I think one significant thing that people refuse to realize, that in the whole political system of Nigeria, there has never ever been a system whereby from the south to the north to the east of Nigeria, somebody has been unanimously accepted as a winner of an election. And don't forget, the phenomenon was that it was a ticket that has never ever been tried in Nigeria.
Chima, let me come to you. Now, it didn't just stop at May or June 12 being declared as Democracy Day. There now calls for entitlements to be given to, he's now being referred to the former president, and that is on the heels of also asking INEC now, that's lawmakers, suggesting that INEC publish the results of the 1993 presidential elections. What are your thoughts, and how do you see this playing out?
Well, I think, first of all, coming out from what happened around June 12, we've all agreed that the symbolism of it is amazing. For the first time in the history of a country, we've had us vote without the ethnic and the religious thing. And it's something we've not been able to repeat. So any type of recognition for Chief MKO Abiola and his vice president should be accepted. Is actually should be a norm. But the point is, first of all, we have to realize that they were not sworn in. They were just on the ballot like every other person, the SDP, the NRC candidate, right? The election results were not concluded. It was inconclusively announced. So the best we can do is say they are president-elect at the end of the day. But it is also very important that the election results are finally announced. I mean, I think as a country, we've matured enough to understand that we have to put this behind us and move forward if we're going to take this democracy to the next level. Okay. You know, so in terms of honors, that's a different kettle of fish. You know, I would, like Ayo said.
Oh, are you trying to say, we thought that was too much?
No. It's okay, but the laws have to be updated. Now, it could have been updated yesterday, last year, but you cannot put the cart before the horse. Okay.
Yeah. What is your perspective? I mean, there's some tell me that, I mean, there's always that chance to amend the laws if need be.
Yes, but I mean, to me, I have to say that I think it is, in a way, moving from reality to sentimentality, and it's the National Assembly too trying to get in on the, we too know how to honor MKO and show our June 12th credentials. So I'm not so... I don't,
no legal implications?
No, definitely there are legal implications, but I think that in their case it's a sort of, you know, post-haste trying to get in on the bandwagon. But I agree with Chima that they were not sworn in as president and vice president, so we shouldn't pretend that they were. And I think that, again, there's this sort of reduction of the whole thing to payment of money and so on, which to me is not really the issue. It's not the issue.
But I know that there's also a clamor to change the way he's been referred to over the years as the presumed winner of the presidential election.
No, because I never called him the presumed winner. I knew he won.
Okay, because now what we appear to have now is to refer to him as the former president, which is what everyone.
No, he's not a former president.
He can't be a former president because he wasn't sworn in.
What's the best case scenario? Ayo?
he's the winner of the June 12th election, as Chima says, president-elect, the former president-elect. But I think to me, it even goes beyond that. It's like, you know, there are former presidents and there are former presidents. MKO Abiola stands in a different category in that regard. And I think that for the president to propose the posthumous award of a GCFR, which is an award that is normally given to former presidents, is one way of, we don't know.
Well, I mean, we're speaking within the boundaries of the law now.
There are legal toing and froing, but I belong to the school of thought which says that what is not excluded is not is allowed. So, but to me, I think that the important, I mean, quite frankly, if we're talking about awards to posthumous people, I certainly know as the, at that time I was the deputy president of the Civil Liberties Organization, and the CLO was one of the leading organizations in the Campaign for Democracy, which was led by Dr. Beko Ransom Kuti. Now, he did not die in the struggle, so to speak, but I mean, if we're talking about posthumous awards, I would have thought that the leader of the Campaign for Democracy, which organized the demonstrations, which made, in the end, Ibrahim Babangida have to step aside, so that if Babangida felt that by annulling the election, he would be allowed to remain in power and continue to dribble Nigerians. The Campaign for Democracy was the organization which came out to say, no, you go this far and you stop.
Chima, you made a good point earlier. You said since then, and I suppose it's obvious to all, that we haven't been able to go back to that time when one person was able to hold that position of unifying the entire country. And it's, I mean, this is 19 years into democratic rule. Why do you think that that is, that we haven't had that kind of symbolism, that kind of candidate, as it were?
I think everybody that has been on ground so far has tried to bring out the differences in us, unlike what happened 25 years ago. You know, the candidates that have always been in the major parties have always been some kind of divisive, you know, and we've, over the years, after the annulment, we've begun to look at ourselves again from our ethnic and our religious backgrounds, well. You know, so it's, I think truncating that election victory was a very sad moment in our development. So you can imagine if we had that administration coming to power. Today, who says we can't have 2 Christians to be president? Who says we can't have the same people from the same side of the country as presidents?
Or perhaps a woman in the mix.
Or perhaps a woman. You know, so the point is, the effect of the annulment is a lot. We can't even begin to imagine it. But it boils down to us going back to how things used to be before. Really, to build a Nigeria for the future, it has to be without religious or ethnic sentiments. That's the only way we can move forward.
Okay, Chima, we need to take a quick break. I thank you so much for your time so far. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back to pick up from where we left off. I've been speaking to Ayo Obe, partner at Ogunsola Shonibare, Chima Nwajagu, founding partner at Blackcreek Partners, and from Abuja, I've been speaking to Sani, Aminu, Dutsinma, managing director of the Islamic Banking and Finance Institute. As we continue our discussion on the symbolism of June 12 as Nigeria's New Democracy Day, still with me are Ayo Obe, partner at Ogunsola Shonibare, Chima Nwajagu, founding partner at Blackcreek Partners, and from Abuja, still with us is Sani, Aminu, Dutsinma, managing director of the Islamic Banking and Finance Institute. Thank you so much for your time so far. Well, let's pick up from where we left off. We talked about how the June 12 elections went and how we're still unable to find that kind of, have that person with that kind of symbolism who's able to unite the entire country, you know, regardless of ethnicity or religious divides. Ayo, let me come to you. We're in another election year. What are your thoughts in terms of how politics is playing, the politics that we have, our present-day politics, how it's playing out? What are your thoughts?
Well, the thing is that, to me, you cannot separate the way our present-day politics is from the outfall of the June 12th election and the cancellation. We've talked about how it represented a vote in which every part of the country voted for the winning candidate on June 12, 1993. But when the election was annulled, the government's response was to say, oh, we have to compensate the Yorubas with something. So first of all, they tried it with Ernest Shonekan, who came from the same place as MKO Abiola. Then when we returned, it was Chief Obasanjo, or then General Obasanjo, who also came from the same place. So the government, in a way, was reinforcing the idea that rather than it being a mandate given by the Nigerian people, that it was something that the Yorubas, it was now their turn to share. And so that ethnicity angle is what is still infecting and corrupting our politics today. And secondly, as I said, the progressives were forced into the same party. But after the June 12th annulment, and elections since then have shown that it's been a matter of, let me get into where I can win an election. So the progressives are scattered. The forces of reaction, if I can call them that, their own is, I'll just be in the place where, whatever the ideology is, as long as it's going to get me a seat at the table where the national cake is being shared, that is all that concerns me. So that ideology is no longer the guiding principle. And so it's inevitable that we will now dwindle back to mundane and primordial sentiments like ethnicity, religion, balancing this, balancing that. The whole discussion about restructuring is premised on the idea that we are never, ever going to think beyond our ethnic identity.
I hold that as for us. Mr. Dutsinma, if I could just bring you in here. Ayo mentioned a very good point, the lack of ideology that we have now in our political space. So what are your thoughts in terms of how we've progressed 19 years into democratic rule and where we are today?
It depends on what you think of what you call democracy. I think it was there once I told you that the essence of government, that is the most important thing, not the form of government. Democracy in Nigeria is a shamble thing. It's not actually even the democracy we're supposed to copy. And as Mr. Ayo said, there has been a kind of the incremental when we come to ideological nature of democracy that we are supposed to have. The first republic was much, much better than the second. The second was much better than the third. And this third republic, as it is nothing, nowhere close to democracy. Even the so-called ritual of election, of going to vote and things like that, is no longer there. You find out that the election is just a shamble in itself. So I think the 20-something or 20 years we have been in is a disappointment and is a disgrace, and the common man has not benefited much from it. Now, Mr. Ayo says something very important that I think I should emphasize, that we always want to try to balance between the north and the south, between Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, and that is a scandal. That is a disaster. And this happened based on certain individuals who feel that when it comes to the turn of my tribe or the turn of my religion, now it might be my turn. I remember very well having read that after the June 12th and after things have been said, Adwa died, Abacha died, Abiola died, now who next? Now, they went somewhere, a group of Kavas went to pick up Abiola, Obasanjo, clean up Obasanjo from prison, gave him that power, with the thinking that after one tenure, it will be their own turn. It will be the turn of their tribe, it will be the turn of their religion, and then, unfortunately, so cleverly, Obasanjo disappointed them. And so this, and it is still the same kind of people who started this in the 60s, from the military barracks and up to today, and I think the same kind of cycle going on. Okay. Now that's where I think we should start to cut it off. Okay, hold that thought for us, Chima. I mean, what are your thoughts? I'm thinking that it's just those kinds of sentiments, conversations that brought us to the conversation around restructuring, going back to the drawing board and deciding who we want to be as a people, the kind of economy we want to have, the kind of democracy, politics that we want to practice. What are your thoughts? Well,
I would simply say it's time to change the narrative. And changing the narrative will have to take a lift from the events leading up to the June 12th. You know, why was the candidate of that particular party, why were they generally acceptable to all? you know. So when we begin to understand that, which is history, we need to understand history, because if you fail to understand it, you can't move forward, you know. So party politics, the way it is played today, was not the way it was played for the people that we're talking about today came to limelight, you know. So we need to understand why it happened. And once you understand that, it takes you to the next level. But let's not forget that in as much as we'll keep falling and standing, we'll keep falling and standing in our party politics, Nigeria will not move forward. Because each time there's a problem, it breeds ethnic crisis. It breeds religious crisis. So at a point, you'll begin to see, like a person in Abuja said, if it's not my my ethnic person or my religious person, we cannot move forward. You know, so the narrative has to change.
Okay.
Effort must be made to begin to sensitize and enlighten people to the need for us to move forward. Okay. And moving forward, you remember, when you have a steady political environment, jobs are created, the economy moves forward.
Absolutely.
You know, so you can't take it away from it.
I mean, we've talked around issues of leadership, the kind of leadership that we have, visionary leadership. Whether
No, I haven't talked about visionary leadership.
Yeah, so I'm talking national conversations. But of course, like Chima said, that candidate that can unify, that can stand as a symbol of to unify the country. And we talk about,
you see, I think that
leaders that are able to unite the country.
Esther, I think it's important that there is a natural majority for progressives in Nigeria. In the Second Republic, except that they were in 4 different parties and the NPM was in 1 party. But when there was a sort of moving together and coalescing, it was a natural process. Babangida truncated it and did a shortcut with his, you have to be in 1 party or one of 2 parties. Now, as I said, the parties are scattered. But I think that MKO Abiola was the candidate of the SDP, and that was why he was able to, but the SDP had already won, was already winning elections in the country. And I think that, for me, if you keep on hanging it around an individual, people will always interpret the individual in terms of where does he come from, what is his religion, what is his or her gender, who are the people around them, and so on and so forth. And so we will always be focusing on individual characteristics. Whereas the thing about the First Republic and the Second Republic was it's much maligned, but the party political system. So that you had political parties which said, this is our platform, this is our program. And then there's contest within that. But you don't, I mean, the unfortunate thing now is that party manifestos and platforms are just, you know, so that you can tick the box required by INEC. Not because you actually believe that this is what I'm selling to the voters and this is what I want to do. Because if the voters were able to say, this is what this person says he's going to do. I mean, in the Second Republic, the UPN said we have 4. If they could say that, and then, is this person likely to do it or not? But when you just start off with, is he a good man? Is he, where does he come from?
We're going to have to hold that thought for us. We have just 2 minutes left. Mr. Dutsinma, final thoughts from you, what the government is doing now, bringing a new Democracy Day, June 12th, and of course, taking us back into history, looking at how we perhaps need to change our style of democracy. What are your thoughts?
I think, as I said earlier on, is something excellent, and I think we should be doing things like that, things that unify the nation altogether as one nation. And I think, to be sincere, there was a question you asked me, that why now? I think it should have been long before this time, On that point, I should say that it is a shame to Mr. Obasanjo. Obasanjo should have been the person to introduce this. He was the greatest beneficiary of June 12. He was there because of Abiola. He became president because of Abiola. And I think it is now time for Babangida to come out and say sorry, Nigeria, to acknowledge that he did something wrong and apologize so that we can have a balance of what Buhari did and what Obasanjo did and what Babangida should do.
Okay,
yes, I think they should come out.
Okay, thank you for your time today. Chima, last words, last thought.
Well, the president did what most politicians would do: strategy, timing. You know, and
does it fall into the category of righting the wrongs of the past?
Well, a very good friend of mine, I think yesterday in Twitter, said bad people sometimes do good things, while good people sometimes do bad things, right? So I leave it at that.
Sometimes good people do good things, but bad people tend to do. No, I think it's a great thing, and I think that as we started off by saying, better late than never.
Never, like someone said, never. It's never too late to do a good thing. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time today, and of course for being here. I've been speaking to Ayo Obe, partner at Ogunsola Shonibare, Chima Nwajagu, founding partner at Blackcreek Partners, and from Abuja, I've been speaking to Sani, Aminu, Dutsinma. He's a managing director of the Islamic Banking and Finance Institute. That's a wrap on Beyond Markets. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Remember, you can watch all previous episodes of the show on our website at CNBCAfrica.com. You can also stay engaged with the hashtag Beyond Markets, and you can follow my Twitter handle too at Esther Ubudaga. From myself and the team, it's bye for now.